All right, for those of you who are joining us here, we're not here for the morning presentation. My name is Ric Serritella of All Access Football, and we're going to talk media, the media panel, an industry I've been working in for 25 years. And before I get to our star-studded panelists, I just want to really just talk about the changes and ever-evolving landscape of the media industry. So when I first broke into the business back in 2002, it was a very specialized industry, right? So you had obviously your executive producer, and then it would trickle down to your associate producers, and you had your production assistants, and you had your technical producers, and then you had your script writers. And believe it or not, they had people just solely responsible for creating headlines. The New York Post sensationalized headlines. They had people that just did that, just came up with headlines. They had people for everything, right? Everybody was a specialist in their own little area. And then as the media industry evolved, and I would say social media played a big part in this, you had to learn to wear multiple hats, right? And I encourage everybody, if you want to work in media, just get in the door, make yourself indispensable, pick up any responsibility that you can, even if you want to be on camera, right? You got to start somewhere, back of the house, front of the house. I was able to communicate and relate to people because I would be in the edit room communicating with my editor, right? And they're bad-mouthing the producer who doesn't know shit what he's talking about, right? And I sat in that seat and I wore that hat and I was a cameraman and I was a producer and I was on the mic, I was in front of the camera, I did all of it, right? So just remember, like in the media game now, you've got to be able to produce, edit, write your own script, right? Be your own producer. I could have a cell phone with a tripod and just do my own thing, right? And that's what the beauty of social media is now. And that probably was like, when I broke into the business, there was no such thing as a social media coordinator, right? We didn't have social media. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And with that being said, I will introduce our panel. We have first up, former NFL player, current NFL Network analyst, very legendary media analyst for all of you football fans. We got Brian Baldinger here with us today. Baldy, how we doing? And also just talk about just the media that you've seen evolve during your course of time in the business.
It's great to be here, first of all. My second year, I was here a year ago. And I've met some people that were here last year, and I've seen their own little path that they're creating. And some of you that I met last night and today, everybody's looking for that path, to get on that path for, whatever level of success that you're looking for. So if Rick asked me, what have I seen? I've seen every change that can imagine. Like when I started, I got done playing in 1994. I started in media in 1995. I worked my way up, and my goal was to work at Fox Sports. I wanted to be an analyst at Fox Sports. John Madden was there, Bill Moss was there, Matt Millen was there. I wanted to work at Fox, and I did. I went to work at Fox Sports as an analyst in 1998, and I was there for 12 years as an NFL analyst and 10 years as a college analyst. So for 22 years, I was at Fox Sports. And it was a dream. The whole thing was a dream. I mean, I loved all of it. I loved the games. I loved the preparation. I loved being at the games on Sunday, all of that. And now it's really narrowed down. It's very difficult to find these positions. The networks are sort of combining. Streaming has come in. It's replacing a lot of it. So it's all changed. But the good thing is you have to change with it. And that's kind of a cool thing. What the jobs that were available 20 years ago aren't really available now, but the opportunities are more than ever. And just right here, I mean, everybody can be their own producer. Everybody can be their own production assistant. Everybody can create their own channel. I started Baldy's Breakdowns 8 years ago. I'm wearing a hat to promote it. It's what I'm known for now. Everybody has to pivot. Everybody has to be ready to change. And I think that's a cool thing, to be very, very flexible. So I don't want to take a whole lot of time with that introduction, Rick, but it has changed a lot, and it's going to continue to change a lot.
You got to be a chameleon. You got to be able to adapt and adjust. And I welcome our next panelist. She is a ESPN reporter. She covers the Chicago Bears. She's been featured on ESPN and just talking about adapting and adjusting. Courtney Cronin, I know it looks like here you started in the newspaper industry and switched over to on-camera talent. Just talk a little bit about some of that experience and transition there.
Sure. So my first journalism job was at a newspaper called the Clarion Ledger in Jackson, Mississippi. Do we have any Mississippi people in here? One? Okay, so you might know what I'm talking about. I started, so I was talking about adapting and adjusting. I was a video person in college. I went to IU. The journalism school at the time was very much print focused, and I wanted to be in broadcast. So my focus there was with student television, shooting, producing, editing, one-man banding, as we called it. Now it's called MMJ, multimedia journalist. And I went to a newspaper, so a place where there are only writers at the time, back in 2013. And I was the video person trying to build a sports video platform for this newspaper. And about halfway through my time there, I transitioned into being a writer. And throughout my career, it's gone like one path changes into another path, changes into another path, and then puts you on what I'm currently doing, which is covering the NFL with the Chicago Bears as my primary focus. But even now, I've seen what's been required of me to pivot within my own career of going from covering solely the NFL to now hosting and doing, fill-in work on First Take, on Get Up, on SportsCenter, and all these other platforms. So I feel like as I've gone throughout my career, I've had a chance to try a lot of different things, and versatility is the word that I would like to impress upon everybody in this room. Like, that's how you make it in this industry, and that's also how you can sustain success in this industry. You have to be able to keep up with the trends, whether it's something as simple as TikTok, social media, or whether it's, keeping up with what the changing medium is, like how the industry is adapting to people like us being able to have jobs and cover different things. And I think the biggest blessing that I had early on in my career was getting to do a little bit of everything. So it was covering high school sports, it was covering college baseball, covering SEC football, covering, basketball, pretty much anything under the umbrella of sports I've gotten a chance to cover. And it allows you to find what you're really good at, what you're really passionate about. And for me, that's football and that's the NFL. But I think it makes you more marketable. I think it makes you more, appealing to employers when you can cover a lot of things and you can talk about a lot of things in an educated manner and not have to just be the person who does the NFL or the person who can cover the NBA or can only talk about women's sports. I think the biggest thing I can impress upon people is try to do a little bit of everything well. And within that, you'll find what you're really good at, what you can major in, but also have a bunch of minors in there too.
Great stuff there, Courtney. Our next panelist is the Indianapolis Colts Director of Social Media, also an alumni of the Ohio State University. I should mention we were talking about our Buckeyes. All right, Ohio State in the building. And Bree Gazmarian joins us here to talk specifically about her role as Director of Social Media. Courtney, you were just talking about wearing multiple hats. Bree, I feel like social media, you just have to wear a million hats. I am my own social media marketing coordinator, so I just can't keep up with it. Just give us a little rundown of some of the job responsibilities and things that people don't see. Because social media coordinator sounds like such a cool job, but there's really a lot of behind the scenes grunt work that goes into it.
Yeah, can you guys hear me? Yeah. There's definitely multiple hats, as you've mentioned, that you have to wear being the director of social media. But we have various platforms, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Threads, and who's to say that there's not another social media platform to pop up out there? So I think for us, being in the professional space, we have 56 guys and we have to use them for content. Sometimes when things aren't going our way, we have to get creative with marketing the team aside from what's happening on the field. So leaning into that off the helmet content is really, really important. And I think having a team that's extremely collaborative and creative is something that any successful team has. And if you're doing it on your own, I think leaning on your peers to be creative is something that I could not stress a lot. I was very fortunate when I broke into this business. I was a former student athlete, So I had a wide net of people to network with. And I did some time with the Buccaneers and networked a lot with various people throughout the league. And then when I realized that maybe I'll try going back to college sports, that's when I realized that NIL and all the different things that are happening in college sports is something that I wanted to be a sponge and take as much information. And kind of like what Courtney said, I think it's really important to be able to wear multiple hats and do it well. But I think also taking in as much information and being able to distribute that the right way. I mean, from a social media standpoint, you're taking in so many different things, whether it's SoFi Stadium, where I did some time, where you're marketing concerts, and also you have the Rams and the Chargers. How can we get people into the building and collaborate with them to get butts and seats and also sell popcorn or hot dogs and stuff like that. And then I think going back to what I'm doing now with the Colts is we're marketing the team, but we're also marketing the experience you get when you come to Lucas Oil, when you come to home games, and using our guys to showcase what they're doing on the field, but also their personalities off the field is something that is a lot of fun, but can also be very challenging.
Great stuff, Bree. I know you're working with the Colts. You mentioned the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How did you, I mean, there's only 32 NFL teams. It's very hard to get into the facility, as you just alluded to. So what was the secret sauce for you? How did you kick down that door? And what piece of advice can you tell these individuals? They're here at the NFL Combine trying to do what you were doing when you were in their position. What kind of feedback can you give them?
Yeah, like I said, I was a student athlete at Ohio State on the women's soccer team. So I was blessed and fortunate to work for the athletic department as an intern. I emailed so many people, I networked, I got my foot in the door just by really emailing and talking to my coach about how can I get a job in sports and just go talk to the athletic director. Sometimes they don't always answer. I was very blessed that they did. And after that, I applied to over 50 applications. I got a lot of no's, and I did let it deter me for a little bit. And then all it took was one interview with the Buccaneers, and they liked obviously my work. They were willing to take a chance on me. And I was just very fortunate that they said yes. I think it is easy to get deterred when you get a lot of no's or when you get ghosted, but I think continuing to keep your nose down and do the work and keep applying and networking, I like to say all it takes is one, and my one was the Buccaneers, and I cannot be more blessed for the opportunity and where it's led me. After the Bucs, I did more networking and that was how I was able to get to SoFi Stadium, which ultimately led me to Ohio State, back to the Midwest, and here with the Colts. So I cannot stress networking and continuing when it gets really, really difficult.
Well, speaking of difficulties, I will promise you're going to hear no way more in your career than you're going to hear yes. And I think keeping that positive mentality, not getting discouraged. We talked about it this morning. Until you verbally hear it and someone tells you no, the possibility of yes is always out there. So like Bree just said, find the one person that falls in love with you. Find that one person to give you that opportunity, and then you're off to the races. Courtney, have you experienced similar situations?
Almost to a T. So my piece of advice I always give young journalists is don't feel like you can't take an internship after college, because like Bree, I sent out 50 applications to TV jobs across the country when I was leaving Indiana. And this was at a time that now, if anybody's in the industry, you send out a link to your reel, you do everything digitally. I was going to Kinko's and printing out resumes and DVDs, like making these like physical copies to be able to send off to sports directors. And I never heard back. I sent out 50 of these from the end of my senior year through my first year out of college, and no one responded. And it can get very discouraging when it's like, what am I doing wrong? How can I get noticed? So a couple of things in there that I want to stress. Like first and foremost, the thing about the internship. So the NCAA is literally, I think we're up and then right over there. When I was in college, there was a postgraduate intern program at the NCAA to work in a number of their departments. So I just applied and I took a postgrad internship in digital communications. And so while I was still sending out my reel, trying to get noticed, trying to get a journalism job, I was honing my skills doing storytelling behind the scenes. So learning how to shoot with a DSLR, learning how to, make really good audio, like really good quality audio from sit-down interviews, doing a lot of the production work at the NCAA, that then when I got hired at the Clarion Ledger to build their sports video platform, I had a whole new set of skills that I did not have up until that point, because it was much more complex than I got in college. And the way that I got to the Clarion Ledger is by making myself stand out. And that's one thing when you are in a competitive industry, no matter what the industry is, you have to set yourself apart from other people. And my major at IU, my majors, I had two. So I had journalism and I had Spanish. And we had an assignment. My professor took us down to Nashville, Tennessee, to cover a soccer friendly between the U.S. men's national team and Uruguay. And I didn't really feel like just doing a normal, boring recap. Like, I didn't think I was going to get anything out of it. So I said, why don't I try to do this in Spanish? Why don't I try to put this major to use and just roll with it? I was going to do the interviews in Spanish, and because obviously it was Uruguay, like there were players for me that I could hopefully use the skill on and not embarrass myself. Which also, don't be afraid to embarrass yourself. Like seriously, put yourself out there. But more on that, I'm sure we'll get to in a little bit. But I did this report in Spanish, and then when I was putting my reel together, they always say, for anything that represents your work, you have to grab somebody's attention in about 10 seconds or they'll move on. So my reel had a couple, two clips where it was some of my best on camera stuff right away. And then the third clip, all of a sudden, I'm speaking Spanish from the stand-up that I did at the Titan Stadium for the soccer friendly. And when I had sent my stuff to the Clarion Ledger in Jackson, Mississippi, I had actually applied for the Mississippi State beat writer job because I'd seen it on journalismjobs.com. And a friend of mine had posted it on Facebook, and I was like, what the heck? I used to cover IU sports like a beat reporter, even though I was doing the television side of it or video. I'm just going to shoot my shot here. And the sports director opens up my stuff, pops in a reel, probably thinking, why it's a writing job, why am I getting a DVD? And then takes my stuff and gives it to the executive editor of the paper and told him, this is not my candidate for the Mississippi State job because I'm hiring somebody else, but I know you're about to create a video journalist job. Here's somebody you might be interested in. So for me, an opportunity I didn't even know existed, I end up finding my path there by putting myself out there, by taking a risk, but also trying to make myself stand out. And all it takes is one. Like Bree was saying, all it takes is one opportunity, one person to see your potential. But you're going to have to fight through probably a lot of rejection and a lot of no's to get there first. But once you're in, you've got to do your part to stay in the industry. But it's a lot. You feel like a sense of relief, and it's a lot. It gives you a launch pad after that once you're able to get into the industry. But it takes a while to get there.
Easier said than done, I would say. So standing out is very important, especially in a competitive market, right? And especially on camera, a lot of demand, right, for people that want to do that. And Baldy, you've kind of been a trendsetter with your Baldy's breakdowns and video analysis. And on any given day, you could probably go on Twitter or pick your social media platform. And I don't want to say Baldy wannabes, but now there's a plethora of people trying to do what you do. So how does somebody in a crowded industry stand out?
Well, I'm just listening to Bree, to Courtney, and really to all 250 people that are out here today. All I hear about is commitment. I've heard about commitment and being proactive and taking chances and writing letters. And the fact that you're all here is a commitment. I know so many people that want to do this. They're not here. I don't know what their level of commitment is, but I see a level and feel a level of commitment. So, I mean, I have my backstories when I first started writing letters in a 300-mile radius from where I was living in New Jersey to become an analyst for a college football program, and wrote to everybody. I got one school out of 20 that I wrote to in a 300-mile radius. Bucknell football said they're looking for a color analyst for their games. I said, I met a guy in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. He hired me for $50 a game. $50 a game. It didn't come with the gas to go out there. But what it did was, what they did for me was they taped the broadcast. So on the way back home after the game was over, I got a chance to listen to how bad I was. You know, because we're all bad. We're all bad to start with. Nobody's good. Nobody has a finished tape when they first start. You can hear the bad language, the repetitive language, the ums and the ahs. Like, you just knew that was a good starting point. I can still remember listening to those games coming through the Poconos and whatnot. But, you know, I started Baldy's Breakdowns because I thought there was a void. And if you're sitting down and watching the Indianapolis Colts play the Tennessee Titans, and you were listening to Troy Aikman do the game or whatever, who's doing the game, as an analyst, you have 12 seconds to kind of explain what happened on a play. But there's 22 players on the field, and they all have a job, and they all have a responsibility. And one of the reasons why, just pick a guy. One of the guys, like Jonathan Taylor, goes for a touchdown run. There was a whole lot of guys that did their job correctly for Jonathan Taylor to score. And I just thought there was a major, major void in explaining the game of football that people might want to listen to. I didn't know if they would. And so I traded in my flip phone 7 years ago because I was determined that I wasn't going to be part of this phone generation. I was going to be different than all. And I traded in my flip phone and got an iPhone. And I just started screenshotting and analyzing this stuff. And it's unbelievable. Nobody knows what's going to work in this industry until you put something out there. And they're going to tell you if it's good or if it's not good. They're going to tell you if what you're doing is worthwhile or not. And so I started 7 years ago doing Baldy's Breakdowns. I've got over 3 million followers. But what I found was immediate feedback from the players, from the coaches, not to mention the fans and the fan base. And, you know, it kind of grew pretty quickly. Like, I started doing just the big games. But then if you were in Jacksonville and your team isn't very good, there's good players in Jacksonville. They felt left out. So then it got to the point where I had to do every team every week. And I needed 40 hours of tape work to be able to really lock in and watch all 16 games every week. But it became a labor of love. I knew it was being watched. It was being evaluated. Most of the people are pretty positive with me, but as we all know, if you're on social media, it's not always going to be roses out there. So you have to be prepared for the blowback and all that kind of stuff. But I 7 years later, I wouldn't trade one single thing that I did in what I'm doing now for the NFL Network and Baldy's Breakdowns. I absolutely love it. Like, I just found it, you know, and it came out of nowhere. I just thought there was a void. I tried it. I liked it. Now I love it. And I hope that all of you can find that thing that you just can't wait to get up in the morning to go do. Because when you do that, you're going to have a lot of success.
Man, so true. My brother used to always say, find your obsession and make it your profession. That's what you should be here trying to do. And you mentioned having thick skin. You got to have elephant skin in the media game, right? Because you're going to get some pretty nasty feedback, right? It's just the way the business is now. I know you guys have a lot of questions. Time is flying by. Our panelists are doing outstanding. But if you guys have questions and want to start lining up, we'll make sure to get to you. I have one that I want to point to you, Bree, because I feel like Director of Social Media is kind of an emerging job role, right? 10 years ago, I'm not sure every NFL team even had a Director of Social Media. So I guess my question is a two-parter. One, any emerging trends that we should be aware of? And then two, tell me about like the difference, almost like a scouting an NFL player, from the collegiate level to the NFL level. Did you notice more responsibility, tougher tasks, or was it similar in your opinion?
Well, to answer your first question, there's probably one happening right now as we sit here that I don't know about. But I think anything to do with asking the guys questions about what year they were born in is one that's really trending right now. Like, what year were you born?
1980.
Okay, immediately there would be a dinosaur or some funny. I was born in 1996, so the same thing for me. Anybody who was born in 2000, you're safe. That's one of the fun trends that's going on. If you are running your own social medias, there's one for you. And then your second question, going from college to pros.
Yeah.
I think for me, and again, as being a student athlete, I had one side of information that regular students didn't have. So, I mean, you could see it as having a leg up because you're in the literally weeds of it as you go through it. So you kind of know a little bit more than the layperson. But I think for me, working in it and also being an intern, you're working with younger students as opposed to at the collegiate level, you're working with professional people. And then I think knowing what's happening with NIL and how it's a new space, that's basically what pro sports are. So for me, I felt like at Ohio State, I had reached my ceiling and I wanted more. I feel like I love giving back. I love all my interns that came through. I think I love to be able to give back to the people that made me who I am on and off the soccer field. And I think at the pro level, I've been pushed to think of strategy. I'm not the one behind the camera anymore. I have a team that does that now. And that's been a learning curve for me because I love making relationships with the guys, getting content of them, showcasing who they are outside of when they take their helmet off. And I think making those connections and bringing that to life and being collaborative and creative, I now have to take a step back and let my team handle that. And from a higher level, I'm now thinking 3 months ahead to the draft. We don't have a first round draft pick, but we have Sauce Gardner. That's been our thing. So how can we create a social strategy when we don't have a thing to post day one of the draft because we're not picking anybody? You have to get creative with how you're thinking about that. And at the collegiate level, for me specifically, I was with the athletic department. So we had 36 sports that you have individual markets for. At the NFL, you have one team that you have to focus on. You have 56 guys that you get and a coaching staff. So there's a lot more from the collegiate standpoint when you're working for the athletic department. If you're specifically with football or basketball, it's a little bit more niche. But I think for me, narrowing that scale and, in my opinion, at a higher risk because it's the pros. You're expected to be better. You're expected to be number one. We have rankings in everything that we do, and ownership sees total post volume, engagements, video views, and they want to see us in the top. And if we're not there, it's answering that question. Whereas at the collegiate level, full transparency, a lot of organizations don't necessarily care about the social media. They're starting to now. We're breaking into the industry a little bit more, but I think the power of social media marketing is now starting to really, really get seen at the collegiate level. And I honestly do think it's because of NIL. So I can't stress enough that at the collegiate level, if that is truly where you start, there is definitely a trajectory upwards.
Great stuff, Bree. Is this on? Okay. Bree's ready to hit me with the dinosaur emoji. Thanks. My man in the red, you look fired up, ready to go. What's your question?
Good afternoon. I'm Joseph Snowden, someone that is pursuing a career to be a sports reporter. Courtney, I followed you for some time. My question is, what mistakes do you see most young sports media professionals make early in their careers?
There's a couple. First and foremost, at least the students that I talk to now, the Gen Z kids at college, they think that you don't have to go the route of grinding from like the bottom all the way up. And what I mean by that is like I said, I had my internship here in Indianapolis, but I started in Jackson, Mississippi, which is a small market. I started covering high schools. I wasn't covering the Chicago Bears. I wasn't in the number 3 market in the country. And so one thing I think people are trying, not necessarily bypass, but you have big dreams, you have big goals, you want to start in a big city. There's a journey here that you have to take to get to that part. So trying to go to the finish line before running the race is, in my opinion, that's not the way that it works because there's fewer opportunities, you have to be experienced, and you have to get experience. And I think the best way to get experience is when the stakes are lower, meaning that you can make mistakes, you can try new things, you can learn from what you're doing in real time, but then 5 years from now, you're gonna look back at what you did and say, okay, I was green, I was raw. I heard Fernando Mendoza today talking at the podium in the convention center about when he started, when he was a prospect going into 9th grade, when he started to get recruited by schools. And he's like, I was terrible. And look at where he is now, about to be the number 1 overall draft pick. So there's that part. And then comparing your journey to somebody else's. Like, there has never been a better time to put your blinders up than when you are focusing on your career and your career only. Because everybody does this at a different pace. You don't have to follow like what Bree's path looks different from my path, and my path looks different from Baldy's path, and none of ours are the same. And that's okay, because we all have done things that we're proud of. We all have different interests. And I see a lot of young journalists get frustrated. And burnout's very real in this industry, because it's like, man, I've been in this market for so long. I can't get that next opportunity. This other person has skyrocketed quickly through multiple different jobs. What am I doing wrong? And it's the comparison game is lethal, especially in this industry, because it'll cause you to question yourself. It'll kill your confidence. So however you can, put the blinders up and focus on you. Have a village, have people that are your mentors, people you can go to, seek those people out for advice, because that's how you get better without having to look around at what other people are doing and be like, oh, should I be doing that? Because when you're on the right path, you'll know. And I think the grind part too, like the third thing I'd say is you have to sacrifice, and really sacrifice, if you want to be in this industry and be in this industry for a long time. That means going to places where you may not know anybody, you might not have family, friends around. Like, I didn't know anybody in Jackson, Mississippi, and I had made that my home, made the whole state my home. I loved it there, but I didn't know anything about that initially. So like taking risks and putting yourself out there in a way that you're grinding early on. Like, don't think you've arrived before you have. Those are things that I see a lot of younger people now, like that, I try to impress that upon them, because there is this urge in a instant gratification society like we're in right now, and where everybody's got a phone, everybody's got social media, everybody has a platform, that I think some people skip steps. And if you really want to do it right, you have to put in the work to go through all the steps, A to Z.
Thank you.
That was great. There are no shortcuts in this profession, right? So, great piece of advice. Find yourself a mentor, right? Invaluable, because you can learn from somebody else's mistakes, right? I was just talking to somebody at lunch before I launched my own media company. I worked in television and media for about 10 years before I spread my wings and went off on my own. And, I made a lot of mistakes, a lot of costly mistakes. Right? And I was talking to a gentleman who's relatively new in the business arena. I said, hey man, you want to pick my brain? You want to get some ideas? Feel free to call me. Learn from my mistakes. Don't repeat the dumb stuff I did. So that's a great piece of advice here. What do you got, my man?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Vinny Pavese, sports writer and broadcaster out of Dallas, Texas. Brian, I've been a big fan of yours for a few years now. So my question is towards you and Courtney. When I first started out broadcasting, I actually didn't have a color commentating partner. So I was doing broadcasts for sports on my own. And now in later years, I do have partners and stuff that I work with. So my question to you is, how important is it to have that chemistry with your on-air coworkers? And do you have any, I guess, just advice on how to build that chemistry?
I've worked with a lot of different people. Some people, the chemistry is instant. Some people, you wonder if they're ever going to get it. Like what are we doing? We've all had partners. I'm sure whatever assignments we've had, that it wasn't smooth. But your job is not about you. Your job is the audience. So whatever, it could be personal differences. It could be, I worked with a guy one time doing a national radio broadcast. He never stopped talking. I was wondering in the second quarter if there was a role for me in the game. Like he did it all. But, it was just one game, and I kind of thought it was kind of funny. And it was his show. I get it. But your job is to try and make it as palatable and entertaining for the audience as it is. And so sometimes you got to give. In that case, I just had to subvert my own analysis and let him do his thing. It wasn't worth trying to fix it in real time during the game. And so you're gonna find where you're gonna have instant chemistry with some people, and some people you're gonna have to work at it. And look, in some cases it might not work, period. And so you'll know that.
It's sports at the end of the day, so if you're not entertaining, then what are you doing, right? Like you want the chemistry. So I host a radio show on ESPN Radio Sunday mornings, and I've done it now for 4 years. It's called Best Week Ever. It's myself and Peter Burns, who's an anchor on the SEC network. And we like to just goof off and have fun. Obviously, we talk about, big picture topics like, the NIL stuff that's going on right now in college football, NCAA tournament. Like we fit in the topics, but within that, you're still having fun with it. And I think the best people, the people you guys all want to watch on TV, like who watches the 7 a.m. Sports Center because they love Gary and Randy, because they mess around, they have fun. That's the Sports Center I knew and loved growing up. Whether it was Stuart Scott, Steve Levy, all of these personalities that when they got on camera together, they looked like they were having fun. They looked like they liked each other. And there is an art to that. That doesn't get built overnight. That's built over time. That's built over reps. And that's the thing that I think in building chemistry, you have to make sure that you and your partner, whoever it is, you're on the same page about what the direction of the show is, where you want to go with it, and how you're trying to bring the best out of each other. Because I've done some radio broadcasts, especially for Sideline, for some NFL games this past year, where my play-by-play guys are fantastic because they're setting me up for success so I can get my reports in and give the audience the best information. And I feel like if you could be a point guard in that and be able to get everybody else involved, like that is the art of hosting. It's getting everybody a chance to touch the ball and empowering them and to make them their best self during that.
Okay, thank you.
And I would like to add to that because getting along with your partner is not a prerequisite for success, but being a professional is. And real quick, I do want to get to your questions, but my first job out of college, I was one of the producers for the Mike and the Mad Dog show. And early on, Mike Francesa and Chris Mad Dog Russo, there was about a 1-year period, okay, where these men would not even speak or look at each other, okay, in the same room. Now we're trying to produce a show and we got to speak to them one-on-one because they're like two little kids. They don't want to be in the same room. Commercial break, one goes to the bathroom. They only want to be in the same room during the bathroom break, right? And they went down as probably the most famous radio duo in history, right? So just a quick story there. What do you got, my man?
I'm Mason Matthews from Kennesaw State University. This question's for you, Mr. Baldinger. So obviously you're known for your film breakdown and your game analysis. What do you look for first whenever you evaluate offensive line and defensive line play?
It's kind of interesting, Mason. Everything is a little, there's no one thing that I look for, but I'm at the combine here, and I come here to the combine right at the end of the NFL season. It's kind of tabula rasa. I just look at these kids with a clean slate. I don't want to have any prerequisite. I study movement. I feel like if you're an analyst, like you're going to study the art of movement. You can watch David Bailey yesterday run a 4.5 40, and you can watch him at Texas Tech play, and you can just tell his movement is elite. Like he's always on his feet, he's never on the ground. And so I'm looking for movement that catches my eye. And then the techniques and the play and the design, all that stuff kind of follows through. But if I'm just studying these college kids for the first time, I don't care what position. Sonny Styles at safety, Sonny Styles at linebacker, Sonny Styles off the edge, to my Buckeye friends up here. His movement, like he just looks special. And so you're looking for those special qualities.
Thank you.
Go ahead, my man.
Hi, good afternoon. My name's Charlie. I'm a student at Cal. I want to thank you guys for taking some time out of your schedules to come speak with us. My question's for all three of y'all in your careers, whether it's making an effective transition from playing to broadcasting or being a reporter on the sideline or even getting athletes to speak in front of a camera. How important have the values of public speaking and being a good communicator been in allowing you to achieve success in your fields?
Yeah, I think communication is definitely something that it doesn't matter what you do, you need to be able to communicate, whether it's easy to communicate with the other individual or not. I think there's a way to go about doing that professionally. And for what I do specifically, there's a lot of times guys don't feel like doing content, and we have to respect their boundaries and get creative differently. And whether it's photo or using old footage of them interacting with us, I think being able to communicate with your team too, like, hey, Q's not feeling it today, let's focus on Tyler. And being able to also say what you want and what the content is that you're looking for clearly, because it can, in the creative space, there's sometimes too many cooks in the kitchen, everybody has an opinion, and you want to do multiple things at once, which sometimes that's possible. Game days, you have to be able to do multiple things at once. But larger picture, I think being able to communicate effectively with the people who you work with is something that should go without saying is very, very important.
I think being a clear communicator is the best way to get across a point to an audience. So self-editing is a big thing for me. It's something that I've worked on and will continue to work on. You're never a finished product in that regard, where I like to, like Baldy's talking about watching tape, like I watch my own tape. So anytime I have a Sports Center hit within a couple minutes of being off air, I'll go and clip it. I'll watch it back. Usually it's for social media purposes to like get the clip to put it out, but I watch it back to grade myself. Hey, I like this. That was a good phrase. I didn't like the way I said this. I used a crutch word here. You're constantly learning and constantly improving by making sure that you are speaking clearly, speaking directly, being concise, but also having a sophisticated use of the English language. I mean, I know that sounds kind of weird, but it matters. And I always tell students, like, take public speaking classes. Because when I was in journalism school, I was like, well, I'm out in the field, I'm going and covering games, I'm on camera, I'm producing, I'm doing all this stuff. But what about a speech class? What about getting up and speaking in front of a room on some extemporaneous topic that you don't know a lot about and you have to research? Doing things that make you uncomfortable or might just be a little foreign as, it's just on any topic, I think will make you a better public speaker because it forces you out of your comfort zone to talk about something that might not be in your wheelhouse. Like that was before I graduated college, my senior year at IU, I took a public speaking 101 because I knew it would be different than the on-camera work I was doing. And there were some tips and tricks that my professor implored to all of us that I think still to this day help me be as good of a public speaker as I can be when I'm delivering a message on camera.
I think there's very few things in life that is better than somebody who speaks well and speaks clearly and grabs your attention. I don't care if it's a comedian, if it's a musician, if it's an orator, if it's somebody delivering a speech. When I first started, I got out of football, I went to work for Nadia Communications, and we worked with corporations on corporate communications. It could be delivering a speech, it could be on-camera communication, it could be internal, how they're gonna message mapping, a new directive within the company. And I got a chance to work with a lot of executives that weren't very good at communications and standing up in front of their own people and delivering a speech. And they needed work. But the good things, the good ones, the good executives knew that they needed work. And we went to work with them to improve those skills. So I think the skill set that we're talking about is imperative for all of us. I don't care if it's on social media, whether it's on air, whether it's even behind the camera and how you direct cameras to be able to shoot something. I think it's imperative to have great communication.
Awesome. Thank you all for the insights.
Skylar, what do you got?
Hey everybody, my name is Skylar. Just wanted to introduce myself and thank you guys for your time today. My question's more for Brian or for Mr. Baldinger. So when you look back at draft misses, for example, is there a trait that tends to fool teams on the offensive line, like something that looks great in workouts but doesn't translate?
Size, size is the first thing. People look at, enormous people. There's not a lot of them walking around the planet, but I think you can put too much emphasis on size. Jason Kelce is probably as good a center as we've seen in the last 15 years come through the NFL. He's going to walk in the Hall of Fame one day. He's never weighed over 300 pounds. He was a lacrosse player, but he was a 6th-round draft pick out of Cincinnati. And yet he had unbelievable ability. And so he got overlooked because of his size, not enough size. But he had great strength. He was super smart, and he never stopped learning to improve. And so I think size, because football players come in all shapes and sizes. So we're going to hear about Ruben Bain has short arms. Well, he can't play if he has short arms. I watched the national championship game like everybody else. He was the best player on the field. So we can get fooled by size at every position. Bill Parcells, a legendary coach, when he went to the New York Giants as a defensive coordinator, he passed on Mike Singletary because he was only 5'10". And he knew once he became the Hall of Fame player that he made a mistake. he looked at size, and it took him off the draft board. So I would say that's probably the biggest mistake.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, we'll go to this young lady right here.
All right, Counselor Joshi Megan from Missouri. I am a school counselor from St. Louis Public Schools, and my school is 6 through 12, so gifted school, so I have the next money ball to do. And my question is, what should I know, or what's your experience with school districts and working with them, and what I should know, because my superintendent is coming on Monday. And how do I get kids? Because I've done videos with kids and trying to just know what your experience is like working with them.
What specifically are you trying to figure out? How to get interviews with the players, or?
Yes, and to like connect with the players with the students, yes.
Okay. Great.
I think connecting players with students. So for us specifically, we have something called Community Tuesdays, and we have a sign-up sheet that our community department hands out, and then guys can sign up as they're willing. And I think if you want something more specific, reaching out to our community person for whatever ask you're looking for. We typically have those guys go out and they interact with the kids as they see fit. I think showcasing what our guys are doing in the community is huge. And I think that all starts with if businesses want to interact with our guys or our coaching staff or just specifically the Colts, I think reaching out to the community person is the best way to go about doing that. And then I think also like setting your expectations up for whoever shows up. It might not be a starter, but it could be somebody on the team who's willing to give back to the community and being okay with that. Because at the end of the day, you're using the professional athletes to give back to the kids for what they're looking for. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We got time for maybe one or two more. What do you got, my man?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming in. My question's for Bree. In your work, either at Ohio with the Colts or with the Buccaneers, I'm wondering from a social media standpoint, when it comes to players, is there any sort of behind the scenes work that is done to elevate a player's personality in terms of maybe they're not the most present on social media, but you see their potential based off of how they act on the field and want to spotlight them? Or is there any coaching or kind of work done to say, hey, this player could really benefit from having this persona on social media when they're not typically like that, you know, in person or behind the camera? Is there any kind of work that's done with that?
Yeah, I think first at the collegiate level, obviously they're not used to being in front of the camera. I think now when student athletes specifically go to school, there's media days, there's photo days. I remember as a student athlete, I hated being in front of the camera. I didn't like doing it. Obviously, it paid off because I'm behind the scenes now. But I think being comfortable with the person who's either pressing record or holding the phone is the biggest thing. So for me specifically, when I was an intern at Ohio State and also overseeing our digital media department, I would pull them aside first, give them the lay of the land. This is kind of like what we're looking for. Have fun with it, be yourself. If you feel uncomfortable at all, we'll take a break. I think it's making the individual feel comfortable is like the key thing. And if you feel a little bit of, you'll feel when they're not comfortable. And I think if you can feel that and have kind of a little bit of wherewithal of how they're feeling, that's going to take you very, very far. I think at the professional level, they can say no to us a lot more. And especially when things aren't going well on the field, they might not be as inclined to. But our guys, we have a great relationship with them because they trust us. They know that we're not going to put anything out to make them look poorly. And if there's a fun, silly trend going around where we're like, I don't know if JT's going to like the way he looks about this, we'll run it by him, make sure that he's okay with it. But I think the more you get to know the people who you're working with and recording content with, even if you're going down the street and recording something fun, I think being conscious of how you're making somebody else feel is something that will take you very, very far, especially in the content space.
Awesome, thank you so much.
And find a common denominator. Find something you share in common. Like my guy I was talking to from Brick City, he's from Jersey. I feel like I know him, right? Or find it, tell a joke, make them laugh, break the ice, and players will feel a lot more comfortable opening up to you. We got time for one more, my man. We were chopping it up last night. What do you got?
Hi, William from Eugene, Oregon. Question for you. I run a podcast with some buddies, and this is for Courtney and Brian. It was kind of touched on earlier. There was, we've had some roundtable discussions, and some are a little more abrasive than others. Are there any tips or tricks that you would give to help mediate that, to clean up the podcast and make it better?
I think being prepared, so everybody that's on your podcast having done the same amount of research on a topic, because the best part of having a platform like that is to not do the cookie cutter topics, to be able to go long on whatever you want to talk about, but you have to make sure that everybody's putting in the right work on it. Like, for example, and I know it's kind of topical just being here in the state of Indiana, in 2023, 2024, especially Caitlin Clark's senior season at Iowa, her rookie season then with the Indiana Fever. For whatever reason, talking about Caitlin Clark became a lightning rod topic. And we talked about it on radio. We talked about it on Around the Horn, like shows that really like to focus on nuance and not just the 30,000-foot view of everything. The best way to drill down on hard topics is to provide fact and detail. You don't have a whole ton of time to do that, like on certain platforms. On a podcast, you definitely have more runway there. But I think about when I was on Around the Horn and some of the harder topics that we'd have to talk about, whether it was off-field stuff, but I'd like use that Caitlin Clark example about, it was the hard foul that she drew from the Chicago Sky game from Kennedy Carter that became a race topic out of that. And trying to keep people on track to not take a topic and have it become something it's not, and not have people be able to hijack the conversation to advance an agenda that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. That takes restraint, and it takes skill, and it takes research. So as a host, for example, it is your job, no matter what the platform is, to keep the main thing. Have people talk about what it is that you're really trying to hammer home and not go off on tangents. Now, what somebody says might jog somebody's memory of, oh, like this would be a good place to go next. And as a host, being able to redirect the conversation when you need to comes from listening. But I think that hard topics in sports, for example, not just talking about what happened with the Lakers and the Suns last night, but is like, and I'm just using this as an example because I do a lot of First Take, and we talk about specific teams like the Cowboys, the Lakers, the Eagles, the big buzz teams, but being able to find the nuance in those conversations by having people with diverse viewpoints and people who put the work in and do the research, so you're not just parroting what somebody else said and you're not saying something that doesn't carry substance.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. That's going to be the end of this session. Before we wrap things up, I just want to remind everybody, Sports Management Worldwide does have the sports broadcasting course as well as the sports media and content strategy. They are offering $500 off for conference day only. So take advantage of that. Sign up, do it today. And the biggest feedback we get from students is, I wish I would have done it sooner. So take advantage, $500 off, almost a 50% discount if my math is accordingly here. So with that being said, let's give a wonderful round of applause for our excellent